Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Zoom webinar with Andromeda Metals Managing Director James Marsh, who has taken some time away from the Noosa Mining Conference, where he'll be presenting tomorrow, to talk us through some of the highlights from the two significant announcements that were reported to the ASX yesterday. James, over to you. And also to those watching, we'll have some questions at the end here as well. So thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, and welcome everybody to this webinar. The idea here is just to cover the transaction now with Minotaur that was announced yesterday. So I'll take you through the main points of that, the advantages of that, and then we'll, as Peter said, then we're open to questions afterwards. So I'll just start off quickly by giving you the corporate snapshot, which I do show regularly. This was mind you a day late, so there's been a bit of a shift there in the share price, but on the chart. But we are in about the same position. This is what we look like. I think this is a great opportunity just to thank the efforts of the Andromeda team that is behind this transaction that we've just conducted, or is in process now. It's taken a solid 8 months of serious effort from all parties involved. So a massive effort, and it's great to achieve that. Special thanks to two people who don't really you don't see what they do. They're behind the scenes, Andrew Shearer and Rod Grievous, our chairman. They've done a massive amount of work here, but it's not really very visible. And just to make sure that you know that without those two individuals, this company actually wouldn't be where it is now, because they started this company, got it off the ground and brought me in. So yeah, thanks to the whole team, and especially those two. And it's been a very good team effort all round. So this is the actual transaction summary. So this is the crux of the matter that we've just actually announced yesterday. So we are going to combine with Minotaur, who you probably know as our joint venture partners, to create a leading industrial minerals and technology company. And as I mentioned before, this has taken a solid 8 months of negotiation to get to this point. And we went with the mechanism of a friendly takeover here. And you'll see that the ownership, pro forma ownership here is very important. That our aim was to acquire 25% of the joint venture. We are effectively doing that, but it's only costing us 19.5%. So, so we will acquire Minotaur, and this is unanimously recommended off-market all scrip takeover. So this will put us in a position of being a leading Australian kaolin and halloysite kaolin producer and technology company by combining the 100% of the Great White and also 100% of natural nanotech, which is the downstream IP part of what we're doing. So this is importantly, this is an accretive transaction. That's very important. That means that Andromeda shareholders are benefiting from this significantly by their increase in the equity interest in Great White and also in natural nanotech. So the offer at the moment is stands as we are offering 1.15 Andromeda share for every 1 share of Minotaur. That will mean that the Minotaur shareholders will end up holding about 19.5% of the new enlarged company, or new enlarged Andromeda. So Minotaur shareholders will retain exposure to the Great White. That's important. They still have that exposure, plus the exposure to natural nanotech. So they will benefit from that. But they also receive shares in the spin company, which is Breakaway Resources, and that will be Minotaur's existing copper and gold assets. So this is it's quite a detailed transaction, and there's quite a lot to it. All those details will become public very soon. That will be coming public towards the end of the month when the bidder statement comes out. So not too long to wait. And you just see there on the right hand side, the pie chart gives you a representation of the whole pie there, 100%, natural nanotech 100%, and it ends up the new ownership, the new company should be eventually about market cap about 550 million. And we'll have about just over $40 million in the bank. So in a very healthy, strong position. So that's the mechanism, and this is the real benefits, the key benefits for all shareholders involved. As I mentioned before, this is a accretive transaction. It's the shareholders, the Andromeda shareholders will get the benefit of the extra 25% and also the 100% of natural nanotech. And also it's going to expose the shareholders, Minotaur shareholders, to an attractive premium here, along with that continued exposure. So looking at the benefits of the consolidation. So very importantly for us, we wanted to simplify the whole structure, the process, the management, and what we're doing with our definitive feasibility study, our DFS, the financing and the construction. So one of the main objectives here was to do that, just to simplify everything and streamline everything. So this gives us a great opportunity now to move quickly and agilely through the process with none of the usual constraints that we had before. It enhances our chance at getting project finance, which is very important. That is our debt financing. Now we're working very hard to make sure that we don't have to raise any more money in this process of developing the Great White. And by streamlining this, the structure of the company, that means that we have much better opportunities at obtaining that bank finance and avoiding any more raises. So this is a very important long-term for us. And it also increases our scale. So the Andromeda company consolidated means we are bigger scale, much more market relevance, and we have very good liquidity in trading. So it makes the company a very attractive proposition all around. Financial strength. So this is an all-scrip acquisition, so no cash involved. That means we preserve our strong balance sheet, which is, as of 30th of September, it was 46 million. So in a strong position there. This means that we are now very well positioned to move as quickly as possible through to production and operations in the Great White. And it also allows us to put some effort into these new high value applications we're working on, which are progressing very well. I'll be talking a lot more about these tomorrow in my presentation at the NUSA conference, but includes the concrete, a high purity alumina project, and also cosmetics application, which is also interesting, moving along very quickly. So at the bottom there, we've just put the highlight there. It provides an enhanced investment proposition for existing and any new shareholders, because we have the potential now for a market re-rating. And once this is all completed, there'll be a share price consolidation afterwards. I think once people realize that what we're getting here, 25% of the project, if you equate that through to 25% of revenue, EBITDA, going forward over 20, 30 years, possibly $50 million a year, that's a huge amount of money and a huge upside to this deal. So certainly a lot of positives here, and it's not a short-term hit on the share price. We see this as a real strong move for long-term investors, long-term prospects for the company, greatly enhanced by this acquisition. Thank you for that, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, James. And there are quite a few coming through, and we won't be able to answer all of them. Some you've already covered, but I encourage people to send them questions through to us and we can get to them in time. But we'll start with the deal. One of the common questions is, why did Andromeda feel the need to acquire Minotaur now at this price? And couldn't you just have acquired 25% that you didn't own of Great White and the Natural Nanotech joint venture on their own?
Well, good question. We could have done that, and that was certainly one thing we looked at. So this 8 months of negotiations and deliberations has covered all different aspects of how we could get this transaction done. But if that approach was taken, there are some very significant capital gains implications and tax implications, apart from the other legalities of doing that. So when we looked at those possible mechanisms and using different ways of acquiring it, this was by far the best for shareholders involved, because now these significant sums of money would have had to come from somewhere, and ultimately shareholders would have paid the price. So this was decided to be the best mechanism to use for that reason. The question about timing there, well, the timing timing now is actually very good for us, because now we're moving very quickly towards our mining lease approval and the DFS, our definitive feasibility study. That was due out very soon now, but due to the fact that we are in the midst of this takeover, it means that we cannot actually release that at this moment in time. Now, we would like to have released it, but this transaction has got some legal implications, which means we can't do that until it's actually concluded. So that should now be January. But the timing is very good for that reason. We can now move through the process and also into the debt financing stage, which comes out of our bankable feasibility study, and then into operations very cleanly and very quickly without any complications.
So it gives you a lot more ease of planning and operations across Nanotech and Great White, decision making, all that sort of process without going through different layers.
Yeah, it cleans the whole thing up. So that to Nanotech is very important. Now, that was getting 100% of that that was something that we really worked hard towards, and we wanted, because having a joint venture, a 75-25 joint venture that was potentially supplying material into a 50-50 joint venture was a very, very complicated arrangement structure, and it made it would have been a bit of a nightmare trying to get that going. But now we have the opportunity just to supply 100% of own company material into 100% owned company innovations and IP. So this now will really allow us to accelerate commercialization of that really exciting intellectual property we've got there. That's, they've got the carbon capture and the hydrogen opportunity and the water purification. All those things can now be moved forward quickly without that complication.
James, the general question that comes through is that some Andromeda shareholders feel the company paid too much for Minotaur. What was the justification for the valuation? You've explained some of that already, but maybe just to give those shareholders with that concern a definitive.
Yeah, so it was. This is something that we have worked on for a very long time through the process, where we've been looking at all the different permutations and combinations and the value that had to be attributed to this from both sides of the equation. And the key here was that it had to be attractive. It needs to be attractive to Minotaur shareholders because we need their vote to get this across the line. So there needs to be some upside for them, and the premium for them we felt was about right. Because when you look at as I mentioned before, when you look at the pie there, the 25% of the pie is coming to us of the joint venture, but this is actually only costing us 19.5%. So there's an upside there. If you look through to the market cap equivalent valuation there, it's somewhere around about 20 to 30 million extra market cap that would add to Andromeda once this deal is complete. So there's an upside to both parties, both shareholders groups here, but there certainly had to be an incentive for Minotaur shareholders to vote this over the line, because it's going to go to a shareholder vote probably early next year.
Based on that, I believe the directors have fully unanimously voted in favour, the Minotaur directors and some of the larger shareholders. Can you comment on when you think that might be concluded?
Yeah, a little bit hard to say there. Now we canvassed some of the major shareholders there. I mean, the directors, by having a friendly takeover with the directors fully backing it, that's a great start. And that should give any Minotaur shareholders reassurance that this is a good deal for them, and they should actually vote in favour of it. Now the ASX isn't too keen on speaking to too many shareholders before a deal is done, so it has to be done in confidence. So you can't speak to too many, but ones we talk to have certainly reacted very positively here. So the chances are that no, we have to get to 50% to get to control, but then 90% for unconditional. So I think the 50% will be reached very quickly, but then 90%, it might take a bit of work, because they've got well over 1,000 shareholders, and a lot of those may not even know this is going on.
Thanks, James. That's a good segue into the questions around the DFS delay, which was the other big announcement. Can you provide some more clarity around the reasons for the delay, some of the inputs that have had to change, And is the Minotaur acquisition part of that delay?
It is. So the delay really is because we are not allowed to release this DFS during the takeover process because that is a material change in the information that's been used to get this agreement in place. So this agreement has been based on the PFS, the pre-feasibility study, and because that's all that's public at the moment. So once this has been agreed and in process, we can't go and then put out a DFS that will be materially different. I think that the market understands that the PFS was a different concept. We were looking at sending ore over to China, which we would refine us in a toll processing activity over there, and then we will sell that material after paying a fee to have that done. So since then, we've decided we want to build our own plant at site. We put an announcement out in June that outlined our plans there. So we're looking at building our own plant, but we are also looking very closely at direct shipping ore, because I mentioned there before, we want to minimize any effect on the share number of shares out there, and we don't want to do another raise if at all possible. So we've got a very I suppose a very clear opportunity here for direct shipping ore, which is looking more and more attractive by the day, because there's been a change in the market where previously the sand that was a waste material was a cost and had to be disposed of, has now become something that can be sold. So now it means that the price for DSO is gone up to where it's very attractive for us. So we can see an opportunity here for some early cash flow. So the DFS now is really focused on, okay, DSO looks like it's a very good option for us. So how much do we do per year, and how long do we keep that going? How much money do we need cash flow do we need to build up a war chest, along with the bank funding that we hope to get, approximately 65% indicated. And how long does that need to be done before we can possibly move through without having to do another raise? So there's all those things that are being worked out at the moment. And as I said before, we can't make those public while we're in this process of the takeover, because that is a material change to what the status that was agreed for this acquisition. So it's coming, and as soon as we complete this transaction, then we're looking forward to getting the DFS out there, because it's going to be some very interesting numbers there. And if we do the job we think we can do, and a very good job there, then we'll make sure that we minimise impact to the current shareholders and maximise value.
James, does the delay in the DFS make any difference to the commencement of construction on site?
No, that's not a factor. The DFS will lead to a BFS, a bankable feasibility study, which that all can be done early next year. So that's not going to change the timeline to the project. The only thing that will change the timeline is just waiting for the government to get the mining lease approvals through. So that process is taking longer than we would have hoped. We've done everything exactly right and everything on time, but it's taking longer than we would have hoped, and it's not due to any problems. There's no problems at all. This is a very simple, easy mining project. So no red flags, no issues there. It's just a government process that is dragging on, but we've been promised the mining lease by the end of the year, so it's not long to wait now. As soon as that's granted, then we have to complete our EPEPO, which is our environmental plan, or otherwise known as a mining plan. That mining plan typically takes 6 months, but as soon as that's complete, then we can break ground and start moving. Now, we've done a lot of work already for that in preparation. So ever since we put our mining lease application in, which was back in February this year, we started working on our EPEPO, our environmental plan. So we've done a lot of background work there, and got a very good team behind that. So we'll move that through as quickly as possible. But again, it's a government process, so it's something that we can't guarantee it'll be done quickly, but it should take 6 months. So we're looking at mid next year. As soon as we get that, we'll be breaking ground. And then if we move into a DSO production scenario, then we could go into cash flow very quickly.
That summarises a lot of the questions we've had here about expectation for breaking ground and the mining approval being given. So thanks for answering that. There are a lot of questions coming through. If we don't get all of them, some of them are quite detailed, please send them through and we'll see if we can arrange an answer back to you. I think the direct shipping ore was a nice and well-received input on the announcement, James, and you covered that too. There's been a number of questions on that one. One of the main areas of shareholders' questions focuses around the concrete product, the market and its progress through the trials. Can you give us some update on that particular product?
Yeah, certainly. This is sort of pet subject of mine, I suppose, and it's something that people are very keen on hearing about. We haven't put a lot of news out recently. That's because we finished our testing, got some excellent results, and we could actually sell this material tomorrow. If we could produce it, we'd have people buying it tomorrow. So no problems with that. But what we need to do now is we need to get a JORC resource of that particular mineral. It's got certain properties that we weren't looking for in our original work. No, our original work was looking at ceramic properties and paint properties. So the concrete requirements are a bit different. So we just had to go back and revisit the samples and the drill hole samples to work out how much of that material we have so we can put a JORC resource on it. So the only thing they're waiting for now is a JORC resource of that material. So once we've got that, it's exceptionally easy material to make. It just needs a sand screening out. And then you have a product that's fit for market and can sell for a lot more than the other two products will sell for. And as I said there, we've got customers who are ready to go. So commercially, it's all good. Technically, it's all good. We know we've got material. We just don't know how much material. And being an ASX listed company, then we have to comply to JORC. So we're not a company that goes out and makes announcements without having any backing for us. So we wait till we get that resource and maybe in reserve on that material. And then once we reach that point, it can go straight into DFS standard. So in summary, it's a great material. It's working beautifully, not just in concrete. Since then, we're looking at all sorts of other applications that it'll also work in. So concrete could just be tip of the iceberg here. It looks like it's got some great activity and some great performance in a whole range of different applications. So that one's just watch this space, and as soon as we get that resource out, we'll let you know.
Another question also on inputs in the DFS is the HPA and the MOU with the AEM. Has there been any developments further on that? And does the DFS delay the HPA project?
No, the DFS won't delay it at all. So the DFS, yeah, as I say, won't delay anything really. It may slightly delay the BFS, but we weren't planning on doing the BFS till probably February anyway. So no issues there. But the HPA, that is progressing well. We've had several meetings. In fact, our chairman, Rod Grievous, is out there in Canada at the moment, meeting with AEM and also meeting with our consultants out there. So we've had a great series of meetings, and we've got some very interesting opportunities there because we've got the AEM tie-up where they are now producing 5N HPA and selling that into the market. They plan to expand that capacity to up to 2,000 tons per year next year. So that's the only plant making HPA and selling it to the market using that process flow sheet at the moment. They're doing a feasibility study in the UK, which is funded by the UK government. That is progressing very well, and that will be complete in March. And that feasibility study will be something that we can piggyback off. Could be the same design that we use in Australia. So no issues there. But we are also doing some parallel work on the HPA opportunity. We've got 3 leading consultants working on that for us. We're looking at some new innovations to the flow sheet. There are a few areas of HPA production from kaolin that look like they could be problematic, but we think we've got potential solutions for those areas that are very interesting solutions. So we are working on those, and that's moving along very nicely. And the plant that we're planning to build at site will be able to produce all the products we need. So it'll be able to produce the the paint product, the ceramics product, an HPA feed, and also a concrete and even a cosmetics product can all be produced in the same plant. So that's the HPA is looking interesting, and we are also got another angle on that, which I'll be talking about more tomorrow, where the HPA plant could potentially incorporate rare earths as well in the same plant. So that's something I'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow, but that's still early stage.
James, is there potential deal with AEM for us for Andromeda to supply feedstock?
So at the moment, the plant in Canada is too remote. They built it up in the very remote part of Canada because that's an area where they could access very cheap electricity. So it wouldn't travel to that over there. Down the UK plant, at the moment the UK government is funding that study because they want them to use local materials and local labour. So they would like them to use the local kaolin. Now the UK kaolin has got a few issues with possible contaminants, but they are trying to work through to find a solution to that. The good thing for us is that we know with these conventional flow sheets that are being talked about for kaolin, for HPA, they normally use about 10 tons of kaolin for 1 ton of HPA products. And we know that our work has indicated that we can use 3 tons of our kaolin for 1 ton of product. So there could be there's a potential there to supply the people with our feed. At the moment, we're not factoring that in. We are just factoring using that feed in our own plant, which we would hope to develop in Australia. So for us, it's going to be an internal thing.
James, a couple here relating to the resource for the concrete material. Is there an outlook on when the resource might be delivered for that, and also an update available for Camel Lake?
Yep. So on the concrete additive, the HRM, then that's something that I have put a little bit of pressure on our geology team, but they are still working very hard on the modelling for the CRM, PRM, the paint product, and the ceramics product. So that is something that's for the DFS that needs to be finalised. It's very close, but the modelling is actually quite complicated because when we added in the paint product, it involved changing the mine design, starting a different area of the mine, and it also involved changing the metallurgy. And now our product is easy to process, but there are a number of variables which have to be factored in actually in the material itself. So the impurity levels, now the halloysite level, the brightness, the iron, the titania, the potassium oxide, so on, and all those things have to be modelled. And we have to know for our DFS study, we have to know for approximately 30 years, every single month of production, what every month will be, how we blend those materials, how we stockpile those materials. So that's a very big piece of work which they're working through. But they are acutely aware, because I always remind them that we need to get this concrete work done as well as soon as we can. And at the moment, we're not just doing that with the concrete. We are also got the pilot plant, which is processing a very large amount of the HRM material. So we did a drill exercise not that long ago, where we took out a few tons of material. That included a few tons of the HRM and also the potential cosmetics product, and also the high halloysite material that we intend to use for the carbon capture project. So all those three at the moment are going through our pilot plant and being produced. So the concrete, we've got a couple of new customers who want the concrete product, and they want about large amounts, sort of ton amounts, to do full commercial trials. And this includes probably 2 of the biggest mining companies in the world. So they're waiting for that material to do trials, and that will just add on to our commercial sort of opportunities that we have for this. But I'm confident we've got more than enough commercial opportunities for this material. But timing-wise for the HRM, yeah, hard to say at the moment. We've just got to get a lot of work done. We're after a new geologist at the moment. A team of 3 is flat out, and we need 4 to get through that. But we will do it as quickly as possible because, as I say, I've got people phoning me almost on a weekly basis wanting to buy that material. And sorry, what was the second part of the question, Peter?
It was just an update on Camel Lake, James.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So Camel Lake is, as I said before, it's progressing. It's progressing, but slowly. It's a complicated process dealing with the traditional owners there in that part of the world. The last thing we did was we took them out by helicopter to find out where we could go, where we couldn't go. because they'd never actually been there before themselves. So they hadn't seen the area. Once they'd seen the area, they decided where we could go, and that was agreed. And now it's now in the hands of the lawyers trying to sort the agreement out, to the access agreement. So that's ongoing. But what I'll probably add to that is that since then we've done some more testing at Great White and around the area, and we found some areas of very high halloysite material. So we think that could be a lot quicker in getting the high purity halloysite. The work we're doing now in the pilot plant, we could looks like we could yield some material that's 80–90% halloysite, and there's very large areas of that we found. So that could happen much more quickly than Camel Lake. And we also have been developing a new analysis technique. It's now proprietary, so it's actually far more accurate in measuring halloysite. And previously, a batch of halloysite testing could take 3 months, which is typical. Well, we can do that whole batch in less than a day now. So we've got something there that's a real effective tool for us and a very valuable tool, and we'll be using that on this halloysite work we're doing. And we want to go back to, we've got some resources there that we've drilled and we've been testing, Tiger resource and Bronze Whaler resource, and we've had a hit there of 90% halloysite in that area. So we're going back there and we're looking at those materials. We're now using our new technique for analysis. Halloysite analysis is very complicated, and there's all sorts of factors in there, not just the halloysite itself. There's the kaolin factors and the crystalline size factors and all sorts of things. But we've now got a way of doing that very quickly, very effectively. So I think that'll speed up the whole process.
James, just a couple more here. Just quickly, there's been a couple of questions about the Director of Natural Nanotech, Dr. Tony Belpierro. Will he be staying on or be absorbed into the Andromeda team? Yeah,
so Tony has been with Natural Nanotech right since the start. So, and I've worked very closely with him on Natural Nanotech. We're both joint directors of that company. So Tony's got some valuable input there. So we haven't actually discussed that yet with him, but Tony's in a state of sort of semi-retirement now, and he's a non-exec of Minotaur, and he spends a little bit of time on Natural Nanotech. So I can see Tony having a function there as a consultant working for that. We are in the process now of forming a technical advisory committee for the Andromeda board, and in that committee we're going to have 3 or 4 highly qualified people who will be advising the board on commercialization of these opportunities. And there may be a role for Tony there. So that's something we have to talk to him about. But we certainly got some very strong candidates for that. And we hope to lock those in and start announcing those pretty soon.
And probably on this final topic, which has been in the news of late, with the government's announcements on carbon capture, is Elon Musk on your speed dial, and how are things progressing with that? Is there any opportunity for federal government assistance or interest in the carbon capture project?
Yeah, you're right. It's a hot topic now with the all these carbon targets, and it's something we're acutely aware of, the work we're doing, and we have got some serious interest from a lot of people in this. We have the pilot plant that is being constructed in India. It's still scheduled to be delivered next month into Newcastle University, and then we'll have it installed and commissioned as soon as possible. So we have some opportunities there where we've got people on standby who want to come and see that plant, and these are serious companies now, some heavy hitters in global companies. So once that's operating and they can come and see it, then that will give us the real leverage that we need to get these companies involved. And we can see that this is quite a unique technology, because there's a lot of people working on carbon capture, but they tend to use sequestering of the carbon, so it's locked away underground or in concrete or some other way. But I don't think there's any other technology around that I've come across, or we've come across, where we can actually convert that carbon dioxide into a fuel and completely close the circle. So we've got companies we're talking to, for example, cement companies who have got a real problem with carbon emissions at the moment. Now they love the concept here, because they could just hook up one of these units to their cement kiln, which pumps out huge amounts of carbon dioxide. We can collect that and convert it into a fuel, which goes back into the kiln. So it completely closes that loop. So it's got tremendous potential, and we can see that this could take a life of its own on. Now we haven't we haven't progressed the Elon Musk thing as yet because we want this pilot plant. We want to be able to demonstrate scalability. One of his criteria for that challenge is it needs to be something that's scalable, something that can be rolled out large scale around the world. And the plant that we have designed, we have the patents have been filed, that will actually do that. So, and having 100% control of Natural Nanotech and under Andromeda means that we can now really use the opportunity to get these people in. We've got a new chief commercial officer starting 1st of December. He specialized for many years in commercializing IP for new innovations. So he's going to be very instrumental in this, and we'll get him working on that straight away because we've got the carbon capture is the first cab off the rank from Natural Nanotech. But very closely behind that, we've got these other initiatives where we've got the carbon where we're working on nanocarbons we're making there now. We've just broken through a threshold. We've now just broken through the 2,000 square meters per gram of surface area for our nanocarbons. That was done last month, so very recently, but now that's put into another category of performance. So we want to then now look very closely at how we commercialize that in batteries, because we're getting better performance than graphene type materials and carbon nanotubes. We're outperforming all of those. So we've got to look at how we commercialize that quickly. And also water purification, where we're getting some fantastic results for purification as well. So there's a lot happening in that space. But the consolidation of the companies and the bringing in of this new technical advisory committee and the new chief commercial officer is going to be able to drive that forward quickly as possible.
James, there's been a lot of questions coming through here today. Many of them I think we've covered. If people want to send them through individually, please do so. We'll make sure we get an answer back out to you. And we'll stay tuned, and hopefully everybody will tune in to watch you on the Noosa Mining Conference tomorrow. And we look forward to hearing further on the progress, both of the DFS and all the other aspects of what's happening out at Great White and the other projects that you're managing at the moment. So thank you for your time today, and I'd like to thank everybody else for attending as well.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And also, I will endeavour to answer any questions. I always try to answer any question I get. So it might take a bit of time. Quite busy right now, but I will certainly get back to you. And maybe tomorrow I'll be able to answer those questions before you actually need to send them to me. So thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you very much.